Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you all to today's Learn at Lunch webinar. We are going to hear from Mike Mayberry. He is the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Agricultural Mediation Program as he discusses this program. And he's going to discuss how this program can help producers in Oklahoma. You may ask questions through the chat button by clicking the chat or through the chat window by clicking the chat button at the bottom of the screen. And I will share a link to the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program website, as well as a link to farm management resources on the eFarm Management page through the chat window. So, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you, Brent. I'm glad to be here today, and especially on this cloudy day in Oklahoma City. But every day's been cloudy lately, so I guess that's where we are. Although some parts of the state still need some rain. I understand from the news last night, they showed the western side of the state didn't see what Oklahoma City area saw. I'm pleased to talk about what can Oklahoma Ag Mediation do for you today. That's my main theme today. And you can see from my title slide, it's a common slogan we have: if you have a conflict, we can help. So let's dig into that a little bit and see what it's all about. The Ag Mediation Program started in Oklahoma in 1987 and has been around ever since. It was based out of Stillwater for a while, Oklahoma City for a while, and we are funded with grant funds from USDA to provide a no-cost link between ag producers in Oklahoma and other ag producers or their lenders or their creditors or their family members. We have about 15 different types of categories that we can mediate in, and those are pretty varied and fairly broad, so we can find quite a few ways to help you if you need us. Here's a photo of me. I'm the one in the hat, obviously, and Cheyenne is my assistant and co-worker and office manager. She handles all the hard part. In fact, if you were to call us, you might talk with Cheyenne first, and she would visit with you about what you're calling about and try to understand your needs and what the potential conflict was, and then see how we can help you. So if you ask, some of you probably have participated in mediation. It's a common word now, much more common than it was 10 or 20 years ago. But the core thing about mediation is it's always voluntary. Nobody has to come to mediation. Some courts are experimenting with forcing some types of cases into mediation before the judge will hear the case, because it's frequently so successful in getting the parties to talk to each other. But it's always confidential. And I heard a phrase the other day that moved me. It said, basically the idea was the parties bring the problem and maybe some solutions or potential solutions into the room, but the mediator brings a process into the room to help the parties work through it. Now, in no way does the mediator decide it like a judge might in a court case. The mediator ushers the process and helps it and keeps the parties talking and even generates ideas. The mediator, frequently being fresh to the problem, can come up with some ideas that maybe nobody had thought about or considered before. Some of those out of the box type of ideas. So, but nobody needs to fear that if they come in front of a mediator, that the mediator is going to decide it, and they might win or lose based on the mediator's feelings or what they heard during the mediation. The mediators do not decide anything. The parties in the room have to agree on the solution if one is arrived at. And I might say that more often than not, such a good conversation happens in mediation that usually there is a good result or an improved result from what everybody arrived with at the start of the mediation. Typically 90+% of our mediations, particularly the ag mediations, are able to reach a good result for everybody. So we have a couple of requirements through the grant program. One of those is you have to be farming or ranching, or your agricultural endeavors must be done in Oklahoma. So we serve all 77 counties, and it doesn't mean you have to live in Oklahoma. You could be from Kansas and come across the line, or Texas or Arkansas or Missouri, or I haven't had one like this, but I guess you could live in New York State, but have farming operations in Oklahoma, and you'd be eligible to participate in the mediation program. There are 43 ag mediation programs around the country, Oklahoma being one of those. So mediation is, back up here just a second. Mediation is has many benefits. You might say, well, why would I want to go there? I could go straight to court, but it's going to be more expensive. It's going to take much, much longer. And there are many things that you can discuss and learn about the problem in mediation, although the core concept is not to go there and find out what you can get on the other party. It is more that you come in good faith into the room to talk about the problem, let the mediator and the process help you explore solutions. So it's faster, cheaper. The relationship almost always stays intact. In fact, sometimes you come out in more of a relationship, a happy relationship with the person you're mediating with than when you arrive, because the stress is off. A good mediator sets the environment for the mediation where nobody's going to be picking on each other or speaking poorly. In fact, it's really just to discuss the problem and work through that. So many of my mediations come out where the party said, I didn't know that when I got here, but I'm glad to have learned that while I was here. So those are good things, absolutely good things. And then when it's over, the stress of even those that arrive to mediation who might be a little anxious or stressed, lots of times, most often leave happier, less stressed, glad to have kind of gotten it off their chest that they were able to talk about it in mediation. So you might say, well, how do I get this thing started if I do want a mediation, and where do we go? And usually it begins with a phone call, or you've gotten a letter from USDA that you are disappointed in the result of the letter, the outcome of the letter, if you made application to a program, or if they've contacted you because you might be in arrears on your loan, or from the bank, same kind of deal. So where do we mediate? We try to do it on every time on neutral soil, a neutral location that's not your house, not the bank, not the law office, not at USDA. We try to find a library, perhaps a courthouse. I will work hard to find a neutral location where nobody feels uncomfortable and everybody arrives and nobody has home court advantage, so to speak. But we do try to do it in your area so you don't have to travel too far, and make it as convenient as possible. Occasionally, we will do a mediation online if one of the parties can't be present, or if we need to have a quick follow-up on something. It's always possible to do that, but mediations typically go better in person with all the parties present, where everybody can see each other across the table and see the mediator right there at the end of the table working closely with everyone. So what do we mediate? What types of cases can we mediate? I almost touched on that a moment ago. There are financial cases where you might have a loan that's behind, or something has changed that needs to be recalibrated. Farm credit and loans through them, or bank loans. A lot of the forbearance and delays in having to make payments right now with USDA and some of their programs may have slowed down the need for a financial mediation. But if you're financed through a bank or a other lender, those may not be quite as delayed. So you may need to ask for mediation on that. Again, mediation is voluntary, so you come in and the other side has to agree to come in, and then we work through it. So if there's a loan acceleration taking place or something that you think is you or the other party thinks is unreasonable, then we can get together and talk about options on that. The most of the big USDA agencies that we work with are FSA, and then rural development and NRCS are primarily where we see cases come into ag mediation in Oklahoma. We also see other types of cases down there on the bottom right, where it's a family farm transition, where the farm is transitioning to other family members or to others that have been closely related to the farm. And we're seeing quite a few of those right now, honestly, where the parents are aging out and want to retire, and the sons and daughters and grandchildren are all trying to figure out how and what best to do with the farm and how to keep it together, and what next should be on the horizon for the farm. Sometimes we get a call for a neighbor dispute, whether it's a fence line, the fence needs to be here, or the fence is not being kept up, or it may be a crop that is being treated with something as a pesticide or other type of spray has leaked over the fence line, and it could cause a neighbor dispute. So if we can get everybody in a room on that, we can usually help folks work through that. Land leases are also now eligible. If there's a lease dispute and something's not working on that, we can work on lease dispute cases too. So let me back up just for a second here. I want to talk a little bit more about types of cases and such. If it's a USDA type case and you've received a letter from USDA, you really need to be active on that pretty quick. Really, it helps every mediation the sooner you come in and ask for mediation, but particularly on USDA type cases, you have 30 days to make requests for mediation. And if you go 40 or 60 days before you ask, they are not required to mediate with you. But if you ask within the 30-day period and it's an issue that's eligible, they will typically say yes, and we can go to mediation on that. On the family farm transitions, there's been a real uptick with that in the last year, and we're seeing sometimes those do not complete in one meeting. It may be a series of meetings that we do with the family as they discuss and think about and go talk about what they want to do next with the farm. But the common theme is most often, almost always, we want to keep the farm together, and what are we going to do to make that happen, and how are we going to keep the non-farm siblings active on this in a productive way, or do they need to find a way out of the farm operations and devise a plan for that? So we see that, and honestly, some of those can be start out pretty tense, but once the mediator is engaged with the family and sworn to secrecy so that they know that anything that's brought up in that room stays in that room, and that the mediator is not going to take sides with any one party ever in any mediation, the mediator is going to remain neutral. Then even in a family farm transition, the parties begin to see how it can be helpful to work with a mediator as you design what's going to happen next with the farm. So conflicts, we say have a conflict, we're here to help. Conflicts come in so many sizes and shapes, and as you can imagine, every day on the farm can be a day of conflict or a day of happiness, but so do the solutions. I spent some time yesterday at the Department of Agriculture listening to some farmers talk about how it was in the 80s and all the way back. But so you bring your conflict. Let me shift back into what actually happens during a mediation. You know you have a conflict, and here's an example where it's a farm transition, somebody's trying to decide what to do with the operation in the future. You make contact with the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program. You can call us, you can write us, we'll tell you how to reach us here in a few minutes. And then you're set up to mediate rather quickly. It could, sometimes they happen within a week or certainly within 2 or 3 weeks or a month, as soon as we can get everybody to agree on a date. But we also find that location and come to you to do that and proceed. So it's relatively easy. You don't have to write any checks. It's a no-cost service to you. And then we start the mediation process and determine, can we solve it in one meeting or do we need more than one meeting? So when I talk about stress comes in so many sizes and shapes, this meeting yesterday at the Department of Ag in Oklahoma City was about this lady here, Mona Lee Brock. She passed away a few years ago, but she was known far and wide by many aging farmers, people that were around 40 years ago, as the angel on the end of the line. And several of those people in the room, quite a few actually, yesterday had talked to Mona Lee, were friends with her, and know all of the things that she did to help farmers during the 80s farm crisis. And she picked up the banner when there weren't very many resources. She was a school teacher and from down in southern Oklahoma, who eventually taught school in Moore. And she started several programs and worked closely with Farm Aid in the 80s to try to help the agony and the stress and reduce the suicide rate amongst farmers in Oklahoma and around the nation. Some of the stories yesterday were amazing and very heartfelt and touching, because of the people in the room actually stood at the podium and talked about how they might not be here today had it not been for Mona Lee Brock and some of the programs that she was associated with. She, if some of you are young enough, you would never know this unless you went to read about it, but Willie Nelson, the singer, picked up the Farm Aid banner, and she and others and hundreds of people were helping, but it certainly wasn't enough given the crisis at the time. So I'm going to play this little clip here. It's about 3 minutes long, and let you see just a little bit about Mona Lee and her family. And this was played yesterday at the ceremonies at the Department of Ag, where they put up a monument in the lobby of the Department of Ag to recognize Mona Lee and her efforts.
I was 19, 20 years old, just out of high school when all of the farm crisis started. My mom, she was the school principal. It was a small community and she knew everybody. They started gathering at the house, and next week, maybe 20 showed up. Within a month, 60, 70 people showed up from surrounding counties.
I got up and I was the person who made the first confession. Things were rough. I set the next meeting date up, and we invited the businessmen, bankers, judge, everybody, anyone who wanted to come. It was an open meeting to make a community go. We depend on each other. We have to have each other. And unless you listen and help us, we'll all go down.
From that point on, Mom was on the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They tried to shelter us from a lot of it, but it got too big, too fast, too wild. She just hang the phone up and put her face to her hands and just start crying. Lost another one, you know.
You can tell we're still here. I always wanted to farm. If you asked me when I was a first grader, well, I want to farm. So I didn't have a plan B to back up on it. You have no idea how much you've done for us. You remember them nights we talked at 4 o'clock in the morning? Well, Lee, I got another letter today. And, and get through it and walk through it.
I can't help but cry, and I'm sorry.
But
It's
tears of joy now.
it's tears of joy. I am so proud of what you all have done. And a lot of people have done that. But by the same token, 4 times that many have gone under.
So I was around in the 80s, but I wasn't farming, or we had a cattle operation up in Rogers County near Claremore, but I remember the farm stress, and I remember farm aid and some of those programs, but I wasn't one of the people that needed them because I was barely out of high school. But there were so many that Jim Espenshade, he serves on our advisory board of directors, and he was in the room yesterday at the Department of Ag, and he told his story and really revealed from his heart that he might not be here today if it hadn't been for Mona Lee and some of the programs that existed. Others did the same thing. But the big point today is there are so many other programs that are available that were not available back then. And Mona Lee filled the void that needed to be filled, along with hundreds of other people and thousands across the country to try to help distressed farmers. But if you'll notice, there's a farm aid hotline that still exists there, and it's working every day. And then Brent had put together several years ago, and we found this guide to mental health resources for producers, that he has the link here in the program if you decide to come back and refer back to it, or also he's going to post it elsewhere on the program. And then I think I can click on it here and show you generally what this document looks like. It starts out with some of the farm aid information and goes down through all the mental health folks that are available to help. And then it gets into other types of programs as well, of which the ag mediation program is just one of those programs. But if you need help of any source, and you're not finding a way to learn what's out there, this is a good summary of what's out there. There we are listed toward the end, but those are things that I think can help you through the array of programs that are available to help. Let me get back to where I was. And I may not be able to get right there, so I'll come in here and then advance from there. But the way you can reach the ag mediation program is listed right here. We answer the phone basically 24/7. If we don't, just leave us a message and we'll call you back right away. It may mean that we're in the middle of a mediation. The program yesterday, I want to come back to that for just a second. There were about 100 people there to celebrate not just Mona Lee, but the programs and the lives saved and the things that went right during the previous crisis. Many folks in that room were talking and I was just listening, but they think that some of the things going on in the farm world right now might be causing similar levels of stress for those of you that are out there actually doing the farm work and the ranch work. And so just know that those programs are available, and that if you'll just call and ask for help, people will stand in line to help you in ways that you might not even have imagined. The one speaker yesterday pointed out that sometimes it's too wet, sometimes it's too dry, sometimes those number of days are not very far apart, or even the miles between where that can happen in with the crazy Oklahoma weather. So those can trigger things, sometimes financial, sometimes contract violations. If you have a contract with USDA or someone to get certain things done that might necessitate your needing to talk to somebody, and ag mediation may be what can get you through that. I'm not here just to talk about ag mediation. I want you to know that overall, all these programs can work hand in hand, and each one is just a tool in the toolbox that may be helpful to you. Ag mediation is one of those tools. Some of the mental health programs on there, or the resources that are available. So please check out that OSU listing if you in any way need some help. And because I think that's probably Brent's work there is handy and it's complete, and it's one of the best resources that you can find on all the things that are available to help you with your farm stress and what might be going on. Brent, have we had any questions come in? Okay, Brent.
No, we have not had any questions come in yet. I have shared the link to that resource guide as well in the chat window,
Okay,
as well as a link to the ag mediation program website.
okay. Is there anything that you think I might have left out or should have covered that I haven't talked about?
I think you got it pretty well covered.
Well, we always enjoy the opportunity to reach out. You'll see us at farm shows. We typically go to 5 or 6 farm shows a year, and we're on ag radio. So if you can't remember how to find us and you're not going to carry your computer around to look for it, you can either refer back to this page or this program that Brent catalogs all of his webinars for you, or you can just Google Oklahoma Ag Mediation and or listen for us on ag radio, and we'll be there for you. So I appreciate the opportunity, Brent, and all of you that are listening to this now or in the future. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I want to let everyone know we do have a webinar survey for some evaluation of this webinar. If you'd fill that out, and that link is in the chat window. And then our next webinar is scheduled for July 18th, and Roger Saws will give an update on Oklahoma land values. So that is that for today, and we will see you in July. Thank you for joining us.